Hey guys, welcome to my June reading wrap-up. June has been a great reading month. I read all of these books, plus I think I DNFed one that's gone back to the library. It's quite the stack, and overall it's been really good. I've done a few videos talking about some of the books as I've gone throughout the month, but there are many books here I haven't talked about yet, and I filmed little clips throughout the month like I have been doing so that the books were fresh in my memory. So I will roll those for you now and you can hear about all the books that I read. Welcome to my week one update, my first update of the month. I finished 2 books, DNFed one, and am currently in the middle of a bunch. So the first book of the month was Heart of Red, Blood of Blue. Loved it, cruised through it. This is by Rebecca Belliston. I gave this 5 stars. I did a vlog where I read most of it, or at least half of it, and then I went on to finish it and just love it. So it is a fantasy, it's set in a fantasy world, but there is no magical elements. We follow, oh my goodness you guys, I'm sorry for all the tractor and construction noises. I think everyone is only backing up today, only driving in reverse so that there's all the beeping, and I feel like they're like right there, although they're not that close. Sorry. So our main character is Gisela. She is a princess. She is an albino, and on her 7th birthday she was betrothed to the prince of a neighboring land, and then that prince got murdered and pretty much a war broke out right there. Now we are 10 years later, just about 10 years later. Bloodless Kristoff is commander of the Savage Krogan War Commander. So that's the country that she was supposed to get married to the prince. Now this commander is killing off all of her siblings and is setting his sights on her. So she's been in hiding for 10 years as her siblings have slowly been killed off. Now she is the last one left, and she's trying to stay out of Bloodless Kristoff's way, but also her father is trying to get her married to a different guy. Not a good guy. He's a creep. And lots of things happen. So this has those medieval fantasy vibes with no actual fantasy. There are times where people think that Gisela is a witch or call her a witch because she's an albino, and they think that's very strange, but there's never actually any magic going on. I don't want to say anything more, but I really enjoyed it and would recommend it. Then in a vlog for Patreon, I read T. Kingfisher's A House with Good Bones. This is supposed to be like a southern gothic story. I really enjoyed the writing style of this book, but I only ended up giving it 3 stars. I knocked off 1 star for a lot of swearing, and then I knocked off another star for the second half of the book. So the plot is that our main character, Sam, she's an entomologist. She's a bug, I don't know, she's got her PhD in bugs. She is supposed to be going on a dig, but for various reasons that dig is postponed. She thought she was going to be gone for 6 months, so the people that she rents a house with have rented out her room for a few months, so she goes to live with her mom for a period of time until she can get back to this dig. And her brother had told her something was going on with her mom, something was off. And when she gets there, she quickly realizes her mom has been doing weird things to the house, changing the paint colors, hanging up things, and she just seems very skittish. And so there is this gothic undertone of something's wrong, but you don't know what. I had an idea of what was going on, so that wasn't a surprise, but I just didn't really like how the ending played out. But I appreciated Samantha. There was a point where her and her mom, it didn't have anything up that evening, so Sam's like, 2 sexy single ladies living the fabulous single lifestyle. Her mom gives her a look. So boxed wine and binging British crime shows. I mean, I'm that kind of person that chilling at home is living the good life for me. So I liked a lot of the humor. Page 9 here. She's talking about how her mom has put out a doily. One of the weird things. There was a doily on the chest of drawers. I eyed it warily. I have nothing against doilies, but they're a slippery slope. You start with doilies, then pretty soon it's crocheted table runners, and then it's a short step to antimacassars. cassars? I don't even know what that is. But I know what a crochet table runner is, so I get the idea of where we're going here. And like, I enjoyed a lot of that humor right at the beginning of the book. Unfortunately, I feel like that ended partway through, and then I just didn't really enjoy where she took it. So 3 stars. And I did say in my Patreon video that I think from now on she's going to be a library author for me. I'll check her books up from the library, and if they're any good, maybe I'll buy them, but I don't want to purchase anymore. And then I had a DNF in that same video where I was reading A House with Good Bones. I started Fairest, got it out from the library in a different video here on YouTube, and I got halfway-ish through, not even quite, and I just didn't like it. I was always afraid that this was going to make me feel sorry for Queen Levana. So this is by Marissa Meyer. It's book 3.5 in the Lunar Chronicles, and Queen Levana is the queen of the lunar people. She's like the bad guy of the series, and I was afraid this book was going to make me feel sorry for her, and for the brief moment at the beginning of the book I did, and then she turns quite nasty, and I didn't like where she was taking things, so I quit it. So 2 books done, 1 DNF. I got like a rave, a mediocre, and a DNF. I feel like we're just doing everything this month. Hopefully there'll be more on the rave level for the rest of the month. All right, I finished 3 more books so I can chat about them. The first one is Shadow and Bone, the first one in the Grisha trilogy, or the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I think they already went with the Grisha trilogy and then changed it. I don't know. So our main character, right at the beginning of the book, she pretty much finds out she has this power that she wasn't aware that she had, and she is actually one of the Grisha, who are these like very highly revered but also feared people group. They're very powerful, and she is an intensely powerful one of even the normal Grisha, so she's kind of like seen as a bit of a god, a bit of a savior for the people, and she pretty much gets taken into the Grisha. I don't know, she has to undergo some like training, so it's kind of almost a little bit like a school setting, very loosely, where she has to try to tap into her powers, learn how to use them, and there is some other things going on that kind of like develop partway through the book, so I don't really want to say, but the stakes are high. I cruised through this. I was reading this during one of my Patreon page count reading challenge, and this definitely helped with my page count because this is just under 400 pages if I remember correctly. It's 350-ish, and I read it in just a couple of days. I'm very much looking forward to continuing this series and then getting into the Six of Crows series. Then I went on to read Agatha Christie's Mr. Parker Pyne Detective, which also has the title Parker Pyne Investigates, I think. And I didn't realize going into these that they are just short stories pretty much. So Parker Pyne advertises in the newspaper. He used to work for the Statistics Bureau, and he really got to know psychology and the way people act, and so he has an ad in the personal section of the newspaper that says, "Are you happy? If not, consult Mr. Parker Pyne," and then it has his address. And there's I think 12 short stories, and they're different people that kind of like approach him, and he solves their problems. Some of them are mysteries and some of them are not. You'll have like a woman that's cheating on her husband, and Parker Pyne kind of sets someone in this lady's life to like make the man jealous. They set up different scenarios, though the last half of the book is a little bit more mysteries that Parker Pyne investigates. It was enjoyable, but I didn't realize going into it, like last month's too was pretty much just short stories. I didn't realize going into this that that's what I was getting. So it was good, but I give it 4 stars because it wasn't great. But that's okay because I had a few that were really great so far this year, so a mediocre one is okay with me. I did a video over on my Patreon talking more about each of these stories in depth because I'm reading one Agatha Christie a month this year and doing a video on that, so I talked more about my thoughts about each story in that video. And then another book that I read for a video, this was for my emoji video where my patrons chose what I was reading based on emojis, and the first one was Mrs. Polifax on Safari, and I love spending time with Mrs. Polifax. Similar to this one, it wasn't like the best of the best. I gave it 4 stars as well, but I enjoy just hanging out with her. So this time we got to go to Africa, which I don't think that we've been to. We've been to Mexico, we've been behind the Iron Curtain a couple times, but I think this is our first Africa adventure. And so we go to Zambia, and she's really just supposed to go on safari, take pictures of people, and the CIA is going to use those pictures to try to identify someone. So if you haven't heard me talk about this, which I feel like I've talked about it a lot, but Mrs. Polifax, around the age of 60, 65, goes to her doctor. She's a little depressed, and he says, "Isn't there something you've always wanted to do?" And she says, "Yes, I've always wanted to work for the CIA, be a spy." And she becomes a courier and goes on all these adventures, and they're so much fun. There's reoccurring characters throughout the series, so I would highly recommend reading the series in order. And Mrs. Polifax like develops as a spy. She learns karate and gets better at it. Karate. She's a lot of fun. Definitely continuing this series. Just sad that, you know, there's a maximum because Dorothy Gilman has passed away. There's only 13 books in this series. It'll be sad when I finish them, but they're definitely books I plan on rereading. Apparently, I've just been reading a ton because I have 4 more books to update you on, and I've almost finished another one, and a couple of these are chunkers. So, continuing along with my emoji video where I got my patrons to choose some emojis for me, the next one I read is Aliferous. I keep forgetting to check if that's how you pronounce it. It means something. It means winged or having wings. So this is a short story collection with a bunch of poems as well. The last, I don't know, maybe like 50 pages or so are poems, and I really enjoyed this. This was a gift from a patron of mine. These are a lot of like fairy tale retellings, just a variety of different short stories. Some of them have like slightly gothic elements or vibes to them, and then a bunch of poems. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's a lot of birds throughout the stories. I want to say like every story has a bird, and most of the poems talk about birds as well. Definitely reading the poetry. I was like, I really need to get back into writing poetry, and I would love to publish, like self-publish a book of poetry. Felt very inspired after that. Have I done anything? No, but I feel like I should get back into that, but I haven't, so I don't know. I can't remember what I rated this. Probably 4 stars. Some of them were worth 5. With short stories, it's hard because like some of them are a little bit less, some of them are a little bit higher, so it makes sense to rate it like 4 stars. And then the last book I read in that emoji video, and I read so much of this because I got sick, Kate Morton's Homecoming. I read this whole book in like 36 hours, mostly one afternoon and evening and then the next morning, because I was the kind of sick where I didn't feel too bad as long as I wasn't moving. And then the second I stood up, I was like, whoa, there's the headache, and like my legs hurt so bad, and I felt like I'd run a marathon or something, and I hadn't. Anyway, I sat down and read all of this, and then the day that I finished this, I went and read another book, which will be my next one I talk about. Definitely wasn't feeling well, but got lots of reading done, so there was a bonus. This is dual timeline, as Kate Morton's usually are. So for Christmas Eve 1959, a man stumbles across a mother and her 3 kids dead. They look like they're sleeping, is what he said. And then the baby is missing. Present day-ish, we are with this woman who is a journalist. She's been called home to Australia because her grandmother, who she's grown up or was like raised by, has been injured. And then she ends up coming across this mystery of what happened years before, and this whole book is Kate Morton flipping back and forth between the timelines and different people and giving us a little bit more information and the mystery coming out. I enjoyed the storyline overall. Once again, actually, normally I say her books feel about 100 pages too long. I would say this one felt about 200 pages too long. We rehashed the same thing too many times. in this book. Like, often she would add another little tidbit, but many times there wasn't anything added. I felt like I saw parts of it coming for a long time, but we just kept talking about it. So it was okay. I didn't hate the book. I didn't hate the story. I just wish it would have been shorter. And then that day that I finished that book, I read the Agathas. So I am just in a different mood, I guess, with my library here. We've moved, different library, very different feel to the library. And I've been reading a bunch of books from the library. And this one I just picked up because this was like Agatha Christie inspired. Okay, no, this is the best blurb. Part Agatha Christie, part Veronica Mars. I mean, I loved Veronica Mars in high school or just after, whenever it came out, but I have some issues with it. I'll tell you a little bit about the book. So we've got this girl named Alice who, she's going into what year of school? I don't think it's her senior. I don't know how old she is. She is in school. The summer before the school year that we kind of jump into here, she disappeared for 5 days. She totally pulled an Agatha Christie when Agatha Christie went missing for a few days. And then at the beginning of this book, she gets into an argument with her ex-best friend and ex-boyfriend because they're together now. And then that best friend goes missing. And this book is Alice and her tutor, Iris, so like the smart girl, trying to figure out what happened to her friend Brooke. Is she just doing the same thing that Alice did last summer and just hiding away for a few days? Or is there more going on? There were certain elements of the book that I really enjoyed. It definitely did give me that like Veronica Mars vibe I was going for. It felt a little too YA to me in some parts though, like some of the themes, which I kind of was suspecting would happen. I ended up using this for the escapism prompt on Tiffany's summer book bingo because it wasn't great, but I flew through it, quite enjoyed my time. This one has a map, which I really liked the map at the beginning because it had like the middle grade map vibes to it, like the way that the font and the, yeah, it's kind of too bright, but it gave me middle grade vibes feelings. There was a part, I was over 100 pages through the book and they were trying to describe where characters were, so I looked at the map and then I realized the map has a spoiler. So if you want to read this book, don't look at the map until like at least page, I don't know, probably like 150. I can't believe they did that. That was really frustrating. So I saw the spoiler like before this thing was revealed, but is it a spoiler if they've put it on the map? That really bothered me. There is a second book in this series, The Night in Question. There is like an old castle that is part of this book that has some previous mysteries that I think they're going to try to solve. It says perfect for fans of Holly Jackson and Karen M. McManus and Kara Thomas. I don't know what Kara Thomas wrote, but Holly Jackson and Karen M. McManus, I think I've started both of their books and I don't know their like first ones. I don't know if I ever like got through them because they're very YA, but I like the idea of them. So I may eventually pick up a second one if I'm feeling like just flying through a book, but it wasn't spectacular. Although one thing I did like is there was a lot of Agatha Christie quotes from her books. So like there's a lot of quoting Miss Marple. So of course I like that part. And then we went back to Saskatchewan this last weekend. I almost listened to an entire book on the way there. So I'm finishing up that book because I had to drive on the way there because we took 2 vehicles. We took 1 vehicle back. So I physically read the book Once by Cameron Doki. So this is Before Midnight, Golden, and Wild Orchid. They're like 3 novellas. They're about 200 pages each. They're all fairy tale retellings. So Before Midnight is Cinderella, and we've got Rapunzel and Mulan. And I really enjoyed what she did with these retellings. It says on the back here, romance abounds in 3 magical retellings. And if you know the original stories or like the general idea of these stories, they all have these happily ever after endings. But she took it and she really, like there was some strong themes of found family in here. I love where she took the Cinderella story. She did it very different. Cinderella has always been my favorite and it's one of my favorites to find retellings for. And this might be my favorite retelling of them all. And even Rapunzel, like there's some unique twists in that one. Mulan, I've never really read or even like watched the movie. Growing up, always watched the Cinderella Disney movie. Mulan, I don't think I've ever watched. So that one I just didn't feel as like connected to maybe. But I did enjoy these, and I know she has another bind up. I think it's called Kissed with 3 more. Based on this and her like huge emphasis on found family, I would be definitely curious to continue reading more from her. These were written in the early 2000s. One was 2007, 2006, and 2009. So I don't know if they're sold separately as well or just in the bind-ups, but I'm definitely gonna keep my eye out for the other ones of hers. That's all for now. I'm assuming I'll have like one more wrap up before the end of the month. Okay, a couple more books to end things off. It was a busy reading month. I will say though, I did not finish Another Gospel by Alyssa Childers. I'm still not very far. I am enjoying it. Actually, I think her name is Childers, but whatever. I am enjoying it, but I will admit I've just been very anxious in the last few weeks, and I've been using reading as a bit more of an escape than using my brain a whole lot. So I will finish this. This was my patron of the month's pick for me for June, and I'm enjoying it. Will finish it. It just needed something a little bit, a few books that were lighter for a while. But the ones I did finish in no particular order are the poetry of Lucy Maud Montgomery. This is a collection of her poetry. I don't know like what percentage of her poems these are. I enjoyed a few of them. I actually found them mostly to be a little bit clunky for me. I have very specific things I like in poetry, and there was a few poems that worked for that, but I didn't really love very many of them. So that's disappointing, but it is what it is. I'm still glad I read it for sure. I still wish there was a better cover for this. I read a graphic novel. I actually got this from the library. This is Wires and Nerve by Marissa Meyer. This is the Lunar series graphic novel, volume 1. I got volume 1 and 2 from the library for my daughter because I thought this was the Lunar Chronicles in graphic novel form. It turns out this continues the Lunar Chronicles series, and she enjoyed book 1 and then never continued, so I thought maybe she would enjoy it in graphic novel form, but I'm wrong. This totally has like spoilers and stuff, so she's gonna try to read the Lunar Chronicles and then read the graphic novel. So because it continues the story and it's not the same story, I read it, or at least volume 1. I will read volume 2 here right away as well, and it was pretty good. The art style is, I mean, it's decent. I'm not a big graphic novel person. Like, I prefer manga over graphic novel, but I found it easy to read, and it was interesting to see where the story goes. I don't want to give spoilers because you have to read like 4 books before this, so I won't really say much, but I enjoyed it enough that I will read volume 2. I guess I could say that the Lunar Chronicles is a sci-fi fairy tale retelling series with like a lot of twists. Book 1 is Cinder. We follow, it's like the Cinderella story, but Cinder is a cyborg and there's like a virus. It's really well done. It's very different. It's not like your typical Cinderella retelling. I really enjoyed it. So it was cool to kind of continue the story a bit. And then I picked this book up. I started it on a road trip. It is His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. This is book 1 of the Temeraire series, and I read the first 70% on audio, and I did not like the narrator, but I was driving, so I went with it. And then I finished the last 30% physically, and I found that in this book there was characters that had a lot of different names, or some of them go by first name, some go by last name. That's hard for my brain. But overall, I did enjoy the story. We follow Lawrence. He is the captain of a ship during the Napoleonic Wars, and his crew ends up stealing a dragon egg from a French ship, and they draw straws, pretty much. They draw a name for one of the crew member to become, now I'm totally blanking on the wording. It's not like the pilot of the dragon, but like, I can't think of what it's called. They draw names because whoever is, you know, attached to this dragon, like their life is pretty much revolves around this dragon. And Captain Lawrence ends up not pulling his name, but he ends up becoming this is really bothering me, the master protector of the dragon. That's not the wording either, but whatever it is, he ends up becoming that. So then we follow them as they become like part of England's dragonborn forces to fight Bonaparte. Interesting. So I think there's 7 books in the series. I don't remember. Oh, there's I think one for every letter of Temeraire, which is the dragon's name. I enjoyed it. I think it'll be a little while before I pick up book 2. Probably, did I rate this on Goodreads? I would say probably about 4 stars. So that's my wrap up for the month of June. It was really good. I think I'm just gonna like hopefully continue this reading high throughout the month of July. Let me know what you guys read in June. Anything really good that you want to recommend for me to read in the future. Let's just talk about all the different books in the comments.